I think one of the unspoken benefits of studying music is the exposure of a lot of different things. Drew, you were talking about sitting down with your professor and getting that one-on-one. You learn more about what it is you like in music, what it is you don't like, the things that you want to do, and I think you should get lessons or do your own, learning in whatever capacity you have. But as far as going to college or even to like a school of rock or something like that, I don't think it's 100% necessary to be a rock musician.
Now, before we dive in, I want to let you know about our rock singing success community. If you would like a place to discuss this topic further, a place where you can improve both your voice and music career with courses and other resources, and have a community of other rock and metal singers on the same path who will support and encourage you along the way. And join us at school.com/rock singing success. That's SKOOL.com/rock singing success. See you there.
Okay, so the question is, do you need a music education? And mainly talking about rock singers, but I think in general with musicians, this applies across the board. It really does. But I still want to keep bringing it back to building a career as a rock singer because it's really what we're all about and what we teach. Do you need a music education as a rock singer? What are you guys' thoughts?
Go for it, Matt.
No, I don't think you do. I think it's definitely a good way to get started. But in my experience, I went to college for music. And I developed a lot of skills that are definitely useful, but are they necessary to be on a stage? Are they necessary to write your own songs? No, because they're things that you could absolutely learn. Like I can identify various intervals just by hearing them. It doesn't mean I'm going to be using that, in a studio. Again, good skills to have, but just I don't know. I don't think it's a super necessary thing coming from somebody that went through that whole super rigid music education background. But
so you're saying academically, you don't think it's necessary?
Oh yeah, academically. I think you should get lessons, definitely lessons or do your own, learning in whatever capacity you have. But as far as going to college or even like to like a school of rock or something like that, I don't think it's 100% necessary to be a rock musician.
What did you do? Let's start there. So there's some context
for my education. Like what was? I mean, the core things you had to learn were history, theory, your oral skills, the ability to just sing things right off the cuff, and then you had your private lessons and stuff like that. And I don't think you need to understand the history. You should be able to, like, as a rock singer, you should be able to like name big names and know more or less who you were talking about. You need to be able to draw inspiration, but that's going to come from your own personal listening, your own personal experiences, shows you went to as a kid and stuff like that. Not necessarily things that you learned about sitting in a classroom. I don't know.
So you went for vocal performance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my main thing.
So let me ask this: in vocal performance, and that more of a classical background there. Mm-hmm. I know it can still help, especially the classical stuff when going to musical theater and things like that. It can still help you technique-wise, but did it give you any extra clout going into musical theater?
Yes, actually, I will. Yes, so. I guess I can reframe my quick reaction when the question was posed to say, no, I don't think it's necessary, but it's super helpful,
Okay.
Yeah, because I absolutely have clout. In musical theater, for example, like when I go to an audition, one of the things that you'll find is 90% of well, maybe not 90, but a majority of the people in that room don't know how to read sheet music. And that makes the job of the music director really, really difficult,
Yeah.
If you're going to be a studio musician, even if, going to a studio musician and
like session singer or something. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Developing your ear to be able to pick out chords, even if they're simple. Oh, you can't really hear that, but 1, 4, 5 progressions. The ability to do that with minimal intervention by the person who's writing to say like, oh, hey, that's wrong. Oh, hey, that's wrong. Like the more you're able to do on your own is better. So there's definitely clout. There's definitely benefit to it. I just don't think it's necessary. I'm not going to tell an aspiring rock musician like, hey, you absolutely should go to school or need to go to school for this. Do I think they should? Yeah. Music education is a wonderful experience, but you know, it's also expensive.
That's very true.
You know,
but
that's still pretty cool though.
I was also leading worship at a church for like 7 years after that, which is why I went to college. A contemporary thing and stuff. But what was interesting to me, I went to college for music. The only music education I got there was running a radio station, and I only got that because I made friends with the DJ and set in with him, and like learned what his job was. Basically, just that wasn't even a required thing. And then I got to play a lot, so I learned the group dynamic because everybody that was in that program was in that group. We were playing twice a week. I learned really quickly that I don't do well when I'm treated like an employee. I do well when I'm treated like I'm a partner. So, and I think the guy that was over the program realized that really quickly too, and gave me half the performances, which was cool. Like I got to lead every other performance basically. So that ended up being really cool. And I learned a lot from performing in front of people and having the person who owned the land that our college was on. She was always there at every single show and met me at the bottom of the stage, either shaking her head in disapproval. She was like a grandmother to everybody at that college, man. So she was like shaking her head. She's like, you sang awesome, but that just didn't do it for me. I'm like, oh, man. Ow. Or the one time she gave me a huge hug and said, that was amazing. You took me right there with you. I learned a lot from that and what I did differently to connect with people. But I didn't learn a thing about music theory, how to play my instrument better, how to sing better. I didn't learn any of that, even though I went to college for music.
That's interesting.
So it's really performance.
Yeah.
And a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, going based off what you were just saying, because you guys both actually brought up some points that get my brain flowing here a little bit. I think one of the, I guess, unspoken benefits of studying music, again, whether that's in college, at an academy, at a whatever, is the exposure of a lot of different things. Drew, you were talking about going to office hours, sitting down with your professor and learning more, like getting that one-on-one time with them. You learn more about what it is you like in music, what it is you don't like, what the things that you want to do, the thing, and I don't know, it's something that really hit for me. Like I was a punk rock kid growing up. That was my main thing. Got the tattoos. If I took the earbuds out or the earplugs off, you would see I have, the little holes in my ears that used to be bigger. Right? Yeah. Like full sent right into that lifestyle. And when I went into college, it was only classical based. And I also think that's really interesting that I feel like the three of us have music education backgrounds, but in three very different fields. I'm classical, Draven, you have worship background, Drew, you have production. So none of us really went for rock, even though this is where we ended up. But when I sat down and I started learning classical, I definitely did it with the idea of like, well, I'm just doing this because I want to be able to sing, but it's it's the only option for me because I knew I had to go to school. That's what I was told growing up. But like two or 3 years later, I found a lot of benefit in just not benefit, but what's the word I want to use? A lot of reward, I will say, in even though this wasn't my style, in advancing through that style. And that's when I started to learn, going back to my original point of like, you learn things about yourself, is that while I love the style of music, I definitely appreciate advancements in artistry and like definitely like a step-by-step, like you could do this before, now you can do this. I fought to get my first aria when I was in college. Like I was training as an operatic tenor, and if one of the first things I learned was like, we don't get what we want. They say, no, you're not ready for this. You're not ready for this. You're not ready for this. And I'm like, fine, whatever. And like, I never thought I'd care about getting an aria. I don't care about I didn't care about singing something written in the 1800s. Who cared? But I suddenly did. And next thing you knew, like, I went from just being that punk rock kid to now, like now I'm interested in singing arias, and I do it for fun now. I've got my arias book sitting right here because it's fun. I can tell a lot of stories about my experiences in that, but I'll let that one come.
And that, so, you know, I went professional when I was 15. I started leading worship when I was 15. And I had some really good mentors in that, like Gary Oliver. You know, some people recognize some of these names, you know, but I guess I could name a few more, but I didn't. It doesn't matter. Not the point. I sang a lot of my musicals. I did one that we put on 2 different parts of the country that I did the lead. You know, well, I was Jesus. You know, I'll lean into the Christian side a while because I'm not really in that world anymore. It was interesting to go through it, though, and see what that industry is like. But going back to education. So singing the lead in a musical for multiple weeks in a row, I can see how that education helped me with performance. And that's what I was taught.
Right.
Because when I was being electrocuted by a microphone and knowing that I wasn't going to die, I didn't think I was going to be able to let go of the microphone at the end of the song. I used it. I was in an angry part of the musical. So I used it, and I'm shaking like this, not because I'm angry, but because I'm being electrocuted. And then at the end, I threw the mic as hard as I could so that I could actually let go of it. But it led right into that character. Yeah. Or another part where I'm singing this beautiful song, and let's see if I can even do it. But, like, if you only knew how I weep for you, Jerusalem. If you only knew the peace I bring to you. And I'm still getting over a cold. But so I was like, okay, this is going well. It's a beautiful song. I weep within my heart for your eyes. They cannot see. This big moth hit me right between the eyes and fell down on my robe. And I'm like, okay, I can't freak out. I'm Jesus. It's like, what would Jesus do moment?
Right, when pulls up the bracelet. Like,
the next line is that I, the true Messiah, come to set you free. So I'm thinking, I, the true Messiah, look down, pick this moth up on my finger, say, come to set you free, and it flew off. And standing ovation because of that. Like, I didn't freak out because I had learned enough about staying in the moment, stay in the performance, let the music flow through you, like you're a conduit of that music. And if I hadn't learned that, and I've thought about it many times, I would have freaked out. Say, there's a bug hitting me in the face. I'm out. Like, this is out. So in that relation, you know, all the music performance stuff was very helpful for me. And at that age, I don't think I would have learned it any other way, especially coming out of high school, coming out of a life of school. I don't think any other environment would have taught it to me if I wasn't put into one. So I can definitely see music education being that continuing education that points you in a direction, that being super helpful. Real quick, I want to let you know about our Rock Singing Success community. If you want a place to discuss this topic further or other topics, a place where you can improve your voice and your music career with courses and other resources, and even have a community of like-minded singers in rock and metal that are on the same path, those that support each other and encourage each other along the way, then join us at school.com/rocksingingsuccess. And that's SKOOL.com/rocksingingsuccess. If your parents are on top of it, let's say I have a student, for instance. Yes, she ended up in college on a music scholarship, but that's not what she studied in college.
Mm.
But her parents put her through this from the time she was 15 in this premier performance program. It cost a ton of money. She started taking lessons with me when she started that program so that she can get really on top of her voice. Amazing, absolutely amazing singer. To the point that between that program she was in and me helping her really enhance her voice, she was singing front of stage, side by side with the singer of Yes, with John Anderson, for multiple summer tours.
Yeah. That's cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So that's not university that got her there.
Right.
That was her parents put her in the environment that got her performing.
Right.
And then got her a teacher. I'd like to think I'm a good teacher that could take her voice to that, really take her voice up to the level she needed to be at to share the front of the stage with this legend in rock music.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. It still took education, but not academia.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it a very similar way with like kind of bridging it with rock in general. Like rock is a very like open-ended, kind of term where nowadays there's so many variations of it, and kind of going off the idea of the data point, doing things like I did composition. And through that, I was like, I like the composition, but I know that I could produce better. I know that these things I could do could be enhanced if I had the right teacher. So I went to the teacher and was like, hey, like, I'd love to do music production with you. You do the jazz band production. What can we do about this? And we created a new small, it was like a 1 credit course where we just spent a half hour every week going through production. And where that ties in is, not only is rock so open-ended and you can do anything with it from composition to production, and that all helps you in the end with like, okay, production, I hear my voice, I know what I sound like outwardly, not just singing in the car and stuff like that, but that mentality that you need, like the focus and the drive and seeing all those different things, you're able to latch onto those different points to be like, I really resonate with this, I really resonate with that. And ultimately finding that courage to be like, hey, I want to start something new. And being a rock singer, you're on front of the stage like we've talked about, and you're the main focus. So finding those things in education where you can take that little extra leap, whether it's office hours to creating a new program, you can utilize that mentality and that confidence you build from that to ultimately be more present on the stage, to be like, I've done all these things that are maybe outside of me singing on the stage, but taking on that persona is easier because I've done things like so to push the needle in whether it's education or on the stage, and they all kind of overlap. So I've noticed from that, just being able to find those tidbits of like rock is so open-ended and you can learn from composition, doing the production, doing anything from like jazz band, which I found bands doing things like by doing things like that, just showing up at jazz ensemble, sitting down with a blood red bass, and the guitar player of the band I was in at the time, Immortal Sin, is like, you don't play jazz, do you? You like, nobody plays jazz with a 5-string now. And I'm like, yeah, you got me. And so he showed me some of the music and I was able to jump onto the band like that. And just through that exposure, that data point, I was able to start to formulate a path that felt correct for me.
So I'm hearing multiple things here. Yes, there's stuff to be learned in academia, and I'm not a big fan of paying a bunch of money for stuff you can learn otherwise. Yeah. But again, like I said, the age, you're not thinking that way. You need somebody else directing you. Okay, go here now and go here now.
Right.
But in the end, it's about I wouldn't say exposure, but immersion.
Yeah.
It's about that immersion in that environment that nurtures you a direction and teaches you a lot about how to handle different situations, especially as a singer and a performer. Not just how to handle being in the group, how to handle being in front of an audience, how to handle your voice when it's not working right. That's a lot of that's about just being immersed in it and doing it. And I think that's a big takeaway in what we're talking about here too, is just do it. Don't wait around until you feel like you're educated enough. Do it, and you will learn. And your early stuff is going to be awful, but you're going to learn what you need to learn. You're going to have the opportunity to fill in those gaps. sadly, that's where a lot of musicians stop, especially in singing, where the myth of, well, you either have it or you don't is there. You're given the singing voice you have. And I can say really quick when it comes to education and singing, I spent many years, started when I was 15. I'm 48 now. I spent many, many years, over 20 years, yelling to get those high notes. And at one point, it was making my throat bleed to get distortion. Thankfully, I was young enough that it healed very quickly, because I don't think that would happen now. I looked at a lot of programs. I, of course, did the YouTube thing. YouTube education is terrible because not everybody knows what they're talking about, even when they seem like they do.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not customized to what you need.
Right.
So unless you're really on top of it already, and it took me being a teacher before I started being able to grab tidbits from YouTube teachers that I actually understood and was able to throw out what wasn't useful for me. But it wasn't until I finally got an in-person teacher, when I finally lost my voice completely. I pulled a muscle. I was already starting to teach, by the way. But I pulled a muscle by yelling up really, really high. Like it was a G sharp 5. Like up high. And I haven't had a voice for a week, so I can't sing that high right now. But,
You're good.
and then 3 months of not having a head voice whatsoever and still having to teach. And that was my main income. I finally found a methodology I kept coming back to for all my students. And I got certified in that methodology because I'm like, this works. I built my voice back up, and suddenly I could sing way better than I had for over 20 years, just because now I actually had someone who had picked apart the voice, understood the mechanics of the voice, understood the acoustics of the voice, and knew how to get the sound I wanted in a very safe way, in a very easy way. And that's why I got certified in. That's why I've taught you guys that same methodology. And I think in the end, that type of education is so important to think, what if Freddie Mercury, who never got lessons, what if he had?
Yeah.
Because losing his voice 15 minutes into a set, every single time he started yelling the high notes because he couldn't really sing them anymore, that wouldn't have been an issue anymore. Right? He would have been, that he was already a powerhouse, but can you imagine if he had lessons too? And there are plenty of people that did, like Chris Cornell. I can name all the ones that went to David Kyle, Chris Cornell, Jeff Tate, Ann Wilson from Heart. These are all powerhouse singers that he taught them how to do it in a way that they could do it for hours.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and that's the other side. That's the benefit of education. That's where you get it. And there are a lot of people that will go out, especially in the metal scene, that will go out and think, connecting it to like one of the main things we teach, which is distortion and grit, where the sound, if you go just based off the sound, you're going to think that they're actively screaming and they're actively like just like
pushing the voice to the point of distortion.
Right. And there are still bands that do. I mean, teaching that kind of singing wasn't even a mainstream thing. I mean, I can't give a number, but even like 10, 15 years ago, like there were some maybe isolated teachers here and there, but it was still like that at that time, music of singing education, specifically singing education, was very much still rooted in the classical sense. And in the classical world, you don't do that. Even today, I presented one of my teachers with a hard rock song to say I want to, and she didn't even know what octave I was singing in, because she couldn't. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was crazy, and I was like,
it's a different sound color.
Yeah, exactly. So you have these groups, because this style of singing in the education world is still so new. You have these groups that are going out, and these singers that are just wrecking their voices.
And then teaching others how to wreck their voice too.
Yeah, which is awful. And it's just a tiny adjustment that does take time to become habit, but it's one of those things where it's just an adjustment that needs to be had, and a difference in frame of mind. Going back to what we were saying before, where it's, well, you were saying a lot about it being immersion, getting different perspectives. And that's where I think education has a lot of benefit. And I think I need to rework my my definition of education, because in my head I'm still thinking like going to a college or going, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
But no, like there's all forms of education in music.
I would also say there are people that are naturally talented. I see that as talent as intuition. There are definitely people who are very intuitive about their voice.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, if you put an education behind that voice and teach them how to sing even better, dude, it's a game changer. It's huge.
Yeah.
Speaking of grit, I've had students who I'm like, okay, yay, let's do that together. Let's sing that together. And he wanted to learn grit. So I'm like, so basically what I'm doing, and I gave the most simple explanation I could, how I usually start, and then I get more and more complicated until something clicks. I'm like, okay, so it's essentially just upping your mass, upping your overall throttle without getting louder.
Mm-hmm.
So you're holding it back here in this cry position. You're not using the extra airflow to get louder. You're using it to activate distortion.
Mm-hmm.
And before I could explain further what to do, he went like this. Yay! I'm like, yeah, like that took me like a year and a half to learn.
I've all had those students, and I love them, but I hate them at the same time. I'm like, how could you?
Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, like wait a minute,
baby.
You know how much money I spent to get that, and you just whatever.
So,
but like all the power to them.
Yeah, and there are plenty of stories we have about that. Like people that are just very intuitive with their voice. Most people aren't. And there are plenty of people that come to us that were tone deaf. And like when I said, okay, let's sing a middle C. Hey, there we go. Like, okay, that's not even close, but let's work with that.
but you still sang a C. You still sang a C.
That wasn't
That wasn't a C? Oh, okay. Well, it was still within. Now I got my face, but it was still within the anyway.
Yes, yeah, sure. It was still harmonious. And there are things like that. But some of them aren't, honestly.
No,
and some of them take
I
like a couple of years to finally get their ear to the right spot. That we're working on technique and the ear at the same time. And once they can finally get the right pitch, it's like, oh, whoa, you already have all that extra coordination built up. Yeah, it is cool. But my point being, we can go into pitch another time, but we've had those students who are complete beginners. Many of them that couldn't even believe they could sing. They wanted to see if they could. And, a little bit of education. Suddenly they were singing way better than they did the week before. Plenty of students I've had come in that I show them one thing about the voice. Put your finger here, sing up and over. If you're singing a mic, sing up here, sing above the mic. That alone, whether they had been touring for 20 years or didn't know anything about the voice and had never opened their mouth to actually sing before outside of the shower, that half an octave suddenly became easy on the top end of the range. Everything just opened up for them. And that's still education. That's still going to somebody that knows more about the voice than you do. That can give you those tips. And I think when it comes to a teacher, that's even more important. This person has spent a lot of time studying the voice. They're not just a singer of another band that figured it out. There's somebody who either learned from another teacher or got all the education themselves, that you're going to them for education. So in that respect, I can see education super important, especially for singing.
Yeah, and I think you definitely need. Again, I don't like ever saying like you need to do this, because again, you go back to what you were saying of like there are some people that are just intuitive with their voices, but that doesn't mean there's no benefit. There's a lot of benefit to it. I was singing classical music for. I think I started with you in my junior or halfway through my junior year of college. And I finally decided, I was like, I'm done. I want to start singing rock. And then what did I do? Just rock singing lessons. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Great. And great name for it, man. Like that came right up there. And here we are, and like, yes, that foundation was there. And like education is super important because it gives you that foundation and it gives you that again, different perspectives, different knowledge, but still took me forever. I would not ever say that. Yeah.
I still want to say too, most people get a music education to become successful, not just to become a better singer or a better musician, but to they want a career in it.
Right.
And there's something that always stuck with me and has always proven to be true is if you want to learn something and really learn it, teach it.
Yes.
If you teach it and you're responsible to others for being on top of it, you're going to really learn it. And it took me a few years of teaching voice before I really got on top of it and got the experience. And of course, I charged accordingly. Like I charged way less back then than what we charge now, until built up that experience and the knowledge and all that, and finally got the methodology and got the certification and all that. You guys get it with that. But even in that, the education became important. But not only is teaching the best way to learn a skill, just teach at your level, teach people just under your level. But teaching is also the easiest way to make money as a musician.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like you have to start out at 30, I think that's way too low, by the way. Yeah. But if you're just getting your feet wet, sure, start out at 30 an hour and go for it and start to learn. And you're doing it as much for you as you are for your students.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that. Like I've taught multiple different things, whether it was charged or not. Like, for example, just having the background that I have with just playing bass, guitar, all these things that I experimented with, finding ways to, through that experience, teach general concepts to people, whether it's like I've done guitar lessons, I've done even piano lessons. I'm not even that great at piano, but being able to just have the expertise of, I know what it needs to sound like because I've worked with multiple bands. I've produced my own music where I use a lot of piano, being like, these are the concepts you can take to move to the next level, and embracing that mentality of, if I want to get better at what I'm doing, teach somebody like right below your level and be able to be, okay, you're learning how to do this. I can give you the concepts to do it. They start learning it. And then they'll like most of the time they'll come up with something completely unique, or even a misinterpretation will be like, never thought about it that way. And giving you that experience to teach the next student and the next student. And then once you get that experience of to collaborate and ultimately like go through multiple approaches to get somebody somewhere, you start to build that confidence. Like, okay, I'm worth money now. I am worth the time of somebody else's time. And instead of just being like, hey, try this, be like, hey, let's sit down and get something like a little bit more formal on this. They'll start treating it more seriously too. And next thing you know, they might be doing something very similar to you. And you create a little community of people going back and forth of like, hey, let's try this together. Let's try this. I'll mix your song. Oh, I'll do vocals for it. And you make transactions and making it a trade, and not just like, I'm just giving you this because why not? Just starting to value.
I would say also, if you're going to do that, well, one, it's not for everybody. Teaching isn't for everybody. I get it.
Yeah. No.
But if you decide to teach, get a teacher. Because they will teach you so much just about how to teach, even without you asking them. Because you get to see it in person. You get to come up with all these objections in your own head and questions in your own head of what's going on, that your students are having those same thoughts. So really good to have a teacher, to have a methodology behind you as well. So there's an education as well. And what's awesome with that is if you actually... if it catches on, you decide you enjoy teaching and you want to build that up a little bit more to where you're teaching part-time, pursuing your music career part-time, then that teacher, a good teacher is not going to be intimidated by that. They're going to be like, hey, awesome. How can I help you with that? Can I tell you what you need to worry about, what you need to think about, how to build up your business? So I think that's awesome. And have a teacher like that is indispensable. It's even when I was teaching, once I got my certification and I was still teaching, I leaned on my teacher a lot. What was awesome about this is I would come up with a problem with one of my students and say, hey, I'm having this issue. I don't know. I've tried everything. I don't know what to do with this. And he was like, well, have you tried this? And I would do this sometimes during a lesson. I'd be texting him. Well, have you tried this? Because this should work. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I have them doing. Okay. It just takes time. But,
Yep. I did that. I think I did that with you. Just like,
I told you to.
Like 2 or 3 days ago. Yeah, I was working with a student, and I think for that one I just couldn't remember the name of an exercise, and I was like, walk me through this one more. And I just texted you, and I'm like, oh, actually, I told him I was texting you. I'm like, yeah, hang on, let me let Draven know. Hang on, and it was tuning thirds. I remember, and you sent me, and it was super helpful because you sent me not just what the name of the exercise was, but you gave me what I needed to tell him exactly, which was super helpful. And going like even further with that, like, you know, getting a teacher as a teacher, because yes, like no teacher is going to be threatened by you as a teacher. And if they are, then you have to ask yourself, like, are they doing as well as they seem to be? Because at the end of the day, like, you're building a community, you know, the students that I'd be teaching, wouldn't be at the same, like when I first started teaching, aren't at the same level as the students that you would be teaching, you know.
When I started teaching, what was this, 6 to 8 years ago? I don't even remember. I never thought, even up to a few years ago, I never thought I would bring on other teachers. But now I have both you guys, which I'm super happy for, and we're, you know, building up that as well. And I'm here for you, and I want to be here for you, and I want to help in any way I can for you guys too. I'm just saying there's a motivation there that I wouldn't have otherwise. And now you moved from being my voice students to being, in a way, you're my colleagues, and I'm helping you guys build up your music careers. And like all the other stuff I've taught, I'm still here for that. I'm still a resource for that, and I want to be. So that's a motivation for me as well.
Which, like,
and what I was getting at though is,
oh, I'm sorry.
Having a teacher is definitely a type of education. Having a teacher you can lean on, even when you're teaching others, it's huge. I don't want to call it a safety net, but it's a confidence builder. Because you realize how much you actually do know about the voice when your teacher's always being like, you know, hey, that's right. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about in that is you brought up the community piece, and we have a few times, but that idea where it really is a community with the teacher and the student, because like you said, Draven, we've now come from vocal students to now we're teaching alongside, but also you're helping us build our careers. And so teaching becomes like an ever evolving thing of like, okay, now that this is the direction my colleagues or my students are moving, I need to evolve myself to then learn a bigger variety of things or different ways of teaching it, which then you become kind of a student in a way where now you're learning from other people, bringing in other teachers to learn from them, building up your vocabulary of what you really want to be able to do. And then students will naturally take that on and be like, hey, now that I'm part of a band, I can now confidently say these things to my band members, almost as though they're a teacher or a leader of that group. And it just cascades. And then those band players learn all these things. They're like, try this. I'm playing the guitar. Try this. And then boom, it's a back and forth community thing.
But here's another thing you're going to realize. And I'm speaking to everybody listening or watching. Once you get good at your own skill, a lot of people start coming to you asking how you do it. Yeah. Why wouldn't you be teaching? There's a demand already. People want to know what you're doing. You have a lot of value to offer, or they wouldn't be coming to you. I have a current student that I'm training to be a teacher right now. Not necessarily to work with us, but just because he's like, people keep coming to me and asking me questions like, why don't we change our lesson structure so you're really learning how to teach this, not just how to use it. And he's really on top of it. But people keep coming to him asking him for advice. And if you're at that level, if you've already gotten good enough from your own instruction to be able to teach others, and people are coming to you for asking you to teach them, try it. Go for it. Charge for it. Because you're of value, or they wouldn't have come to you in the first place. Even if it's just saying, you know what could you what would you want to pay for that, man? You know,
Oh,
whatever.
dude, yeah.
I'm up for whatever.
I think I started with like lunch. I'm like, yeah, just give me lunch, and then I'll give you a few tips. I think there are a couple reasons. If I kind of want to expand on that, because it's an interesting thing as to why someone would be hesitant to jump into that teaching role. For a lot of people, I think it's insecurity, it's fear of not knowing how to do it. But then that goes back to what we were just saying, like a little while ago, where it's like like the best way to learn something is to teach. Sorry. So you're gonna jump in and you're gonna learn how to teach as you go, and you'll find that you know so much more about it as you continue to progress. And we already made all those points, and the one I was really thinking about, and it's a myth or it's an idea that I do want to kind of break, and that's when you start teaching, your career is dead. And I think that's
if
I think
you
that's
can't
awful.
teach.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think that's so silly, because you're limiting in a wonderful way to make money in music, first of all, and to inspire people. Because at the end of the day, like that's what teaching is. You want to inspire, there's nothing better since I've started teaching than seeing a student light up when they get something right. When a student comes to me and says, I'm auditioning for this show, I'm joining this band, I'm releasing this video. And if I had, if I was so concerned about my career as a musician to say I can't teach because then I'm not going to then if I teach, then my career's over, then that would never have happened. Those students would never have gotten that inspiration. And next thing, I mean, I'm not saying never, but like for the sake of this metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely have seen that. Like going back to what you like at the very beginning of all this, Matt, you brought up like when a teacher in education can kind of be something where you're watching a video or at a live show, watching your favorite singer, like do exactly what they're doing. And it comes to what you're talking about with inspiration. Like, I feel like that's one of the biggest things as a teacher you can do. And as a good friend in general, like, it is that community piece. Like a friend is, your friend is someone you will talk to, whether it's about philosophy, whether it's about, music or anything. You could be like, you will learn from each other if you have discussions. And that discussion can be something as like simple as one in your head of like, I want to be that guy on the stage. I want to be that person. You're inspired. And then that helps you write your music. It helps you just feel like, yeah, I can do something with what I have, whether it's the smallest little tidbit to something you're getting paid for. Like you don't have to, toss out your career to do any of that. You can be a good friend and a good community member regardless. Within the 9 to 5 that you have, you work your way up on this ladder. And that's ultimately because you're demonstrating these things as you are, you have utility to other people beyond just doing the busy work. And so you can learn from all of that in your 9 to 5 to apply to what you're doing in part-time and slowly begin to transition to something you want to do, because you build that confidence through the beginnings, which is your inspiration to do so.
Yeah.
That's good.
That was very well.
Clear up another misconception. When I say the best way to make money, or when we were talking about this, the best way to make money as a singer is to teach. And besides the benefits behind that is you as a singer as well. And what you're going to learn from that is a lot of people are hesitant to teach because they think they're not a great teacher. They don't know enough. They need all this education to be a teacher. No, you don't. You can teach people right under you. And we've said that before. But what most people don't realize is 80% of teaching, maybe 90%, like really high percentage, is life coaching.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that you're telling them how to live their life. It's that you're there to listen as they work through these issues, because they finally have somebody they can be vulnerable in front of, which singing is a very vulnerable thing.
Oh, yeah.
You can be vulnerable with you and get empathy from and get encouragement from. That is most of teaching, honestly. The techniques, that's a little bit. That's just a little bit of it. And I mean, honestly, if they're practicing, I have one student who we spend 10 minutes of the lesson addressing a technical issue with his voice. Then we spend 50 minutes talking about life. And he loves it. And I stop him every now and then. It's like, man, I want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. It's like, no, I got my money's worth already.
Yep.
So it's like, I love talking with you. And that I'm one of the few people he thinks he can talk to about that stuff. So that's a big part of it. And it's just being a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I don't like doing scales unless they want to learn vocal runs. And it has a specific purpose. Right. I don't like spending an hour doing vocal exercises they could do on their own. It's like, let me teach you how to fix this. Let's adjust your training routine so that you are addressing it on your own too. And then let's move on. Maybe we can see how this feels in a song, how this feels when you do it this way. But so that I make sure that you have a good understanding of what you're doing and what you need to do to go the next step in your voice. Once we're there, plenty of students, I'll spend at least 20 minutes of the lesson just chatting.
Yeah. I've noticed that with my 17-year-old student is she's beginning to explore, different parts of her voice. Like we haven't gotten into distortion or anything like that yet, but it's irrelevant. I digress. And with songwriting, she's been getting really into that. And that goes to that friend piece where like we're writing songs together. And when she shows up, she's more excited than ever. And then so when we talk about these technical pieces, she's more inspired and willing to try those things out and those exercises because of that belief of, I know what I'm doing, as well as like, I want to try that because that makes her feel inspired to show up the next lesson and hit those notes that she's looking to do, to be like, now let's apply that to the song we're doing. That is really the driver of, why she likes to, do lessons with me. She'd be like, this was so fun. I love doing it. I'm showing all my friends and my bandmates that were excited to learn it. And it really gives them that little bit of just, motivation to move to the next step. And they really will practice at that point because they feel like they're getting something more out of it than just, okay, let's do this scale. Let's do this thing. And they just feel like they're hitting a wall because they're like, I don't know why I'm here. This sucks. It's just pain,
Yeah. No, and
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I 100% agree with you. And I think my block as a teacher is because sometimes, and it took me a while to get past that, is getting a lot of my education through academia, through college. Most of my lessons were scales. We would sit there and he, just, and those would be our scales, and we do those up, and then we would do a song, and that was it.
No.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, I hate that.
But no, exactly. And so I felt, because that connection was not always missing, because we would get that eventually especially if I came in and did the work, and they didn't have much to say about it. But I sometimes feel if I don't give those students like, let's do these scales, let's do half-hour warm-up, and then we'll do half-hour song, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I'm failing them. And it took me a while to learn, like, no, that's not the case, because the students, like you said, need that connection. They need that. They'll spend however much time they want just talking to you about what it is going on in their lives, whether it be music related or not. And I think that's a block that I think we need to get past, is not we as, but like the collective we, the royal we. We need to learn to break about music education, about singing education, specifically, is that it's not just scales. It's not just working on technique, because technique's going to fail day to day. You could have had a rough night's sleep, and then all of a sudden, like last week, you could hit a G, no problem. I didn't just now, but still. And then the week after, like you can only get up to the E, and then all of a sudden you're frustrated. Yeah. But that's not a good representation of your education, of your progress. It's just, so that's,
I'd say that the most powerful and the most valuable thing you can do as a musician, as a rock singer, or as a teacher, is the original context I was thinking in, is be there for them.
Yeah.
On the stage, that changes how you perform. You're not there for you. You're there to connect with them. When you're writing, that changes the way you write certain things. Yes, you have a core message that's coming out of you, but if it's not connecting with them, it's not going to go anywhere. As a teacher, You're there to help them meet their goals. If they need a life coach for the majority of that, which most people use it that way, then be there for that. If they have a specific goal in mind of how they want their voice to sound and what they want to do with their voice, or even if they're quite a little bit unsure, but they like these singers, go that direction with them.
Yeah.
If you personally, you can learn a lot about this as a teacher, as a musician yourself, but if you go to somebody as a teacher and they have an idea of how you should sound, and it's one thing to know how to get you there. It's another to say, you're going to sound like this. Well, that's out of your voice range. Well, this isn't how you sound. And they constantly instruct you on a way that they want you to sound rather than the way you want to sound. Run away. That is not the right person. You're not going to learn from them. You're not going to connect with them. If you're doing that to your student or you're doing that to your audience, saying, this is what I'm giving you, I don't care what you think. There's an issue. You're not connecting with them anymore. You're not adding value. You're extracting it for yourself.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's a lesson I learned. I had to learn as a young teacher and I've been that teacher before, and I kick myself. Like, if I could give a refund to so many of my first few students, I would. I'd be like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, no, I agree. And that was a huge lesson. That I had to learn myself.
In tandem with that is like the idea of like failure, because that's like a huge teacher in of itself. And failure comes from exploring, and also like learning to overcome that comes from adaptation. Like, as an education piece with performing, you have days where you show up and, like you were giving examples with Matt, you're like, can I hit the G today? Maybe it's just the A today or the E. And then as you go through it, you learn to adapt. And as you become more adaptive in as you approach things, you can start to be more adaptive as you become a teacher, to be like, okay, maybe it is life coaching. Maybe it is this technical piece they're looking to do, but finding ways to be adaptive, to really feel like you're connecting with them. And a good friend is like that anyway, where you're able to go on off these tangents and just be able to not have that fear of like, oh, if I talk about this, I'm weird. Like, in this case as a teacher, like your bowling lanes to stay within, to be like, well, this is relevant, but you're able to adapt to move in between these pieces because you've spent the time learning that through being a teacher in the beginning and learning from experience and failing and just being like, that didn't work. So I'll keep that as a data point, not throw it away completely, because that can be useful to somebody else in the end. But as you learn to fail, you learn to succeed, because like, Thomas Edison said, he learned the way to not build a light bulb, and then 1,000 different ways. And then he got to the one that worked. Right. So by having those approaches of like, I'm okay to fail, that will also build confidence in you to then take the direction you want to take and find your voice. And then know when you come up with those teachers who are like, no, you're going to do this, you're going to sound like this. You've built that adaptation and that confidence in yourself to be like, nope, that's not for me. You're not afraid to say it.
Yeah. Especially considering that the voice doesn't stop maturing and growing until you're in your 30s. So why would people, especially for young singers who are probably, high school age, maybe younger, or like 20s, who are either just getting started learning, who are learning about their voices, like, why would you put that expectation on them? Why would you make them feel, because then all of a sudden when they don't reach that, then all of a sudden they're going to feel less. And like, that's not okay. Yeah. Oh gosh, I could go on about that.
Like, some students are naturally intuitive, get it right away. Some students take years, and you have to constantly remind them of the little baby steps that they're making, because they don't notice. Right. But since you don't see them every single day, you notice. So, you got to point that out to them. And what I say when I brought you guys on as teachers, that the three main things is, I think it was, one, instruction, examples. I think the other one was affirmation, which is actually number one, affirmation, that they're doing well, they're headed in the right direction. And we're going to tell you if you're not doing well, but
we're not going to lie to you,
but we're also going to point out the things you are doing well and making progress. And that expectation of being amazing, we put on ourselves too, man.
Oh,
like Like, we want to be here. Why is it taking me more than a week? Because it's not a magic pill. It's a fine motor skill. Did you learn to write the way you handwrite right now in a week? No. It's a fine motor skill. It takes years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to do
it. You can get good in 90 days.
Yeah.
But it takes years to master it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say, no, I want to wrap this up.
For sure.
And I think we honestly talked about two main subjects and like a couple different subjects in this that we'll probably end up splitting into separate podcasts. But on the teaching thing, recently, one of the groups I'm in that's full of, so I'll say a couple things. This group I'm in is full of middle income musicians. I've known them for like 15 years. And they've always been middle income musicians, and they're very happy with that. You spoke, Matt, or you mentioned earlier about teaching is the end of your career. You know, how that a lot of people think that if you can't do, then you teach. And so, well, these guys, and I have so many examples of this, but they play out regularly. They record albums regularly. They play what they want. Like, they're not just grabbing onto these little gigs. They're playing some cool shows, and they're having fun doing it. They're actually making okay money from the act of performing and recording. 80% of their income, and oh man, I can name 40 people off the top of my head that have this, and more I've heard talk about it outside of my circle. 80% of their income comes from teaching.
Yeah.
The rest of it is the external stuff. And there are ways to make money doing that too. I'm working towards a book that teaches how to maximize the income from shows and maximize income from building a fan base and how to use that. But teaching's the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's saying that there are a few things in this group. This one guy came in that had an assignment from, I think he's going to Berkeley right now. And his teacher gave an assignment. Okay, he's my age, by the way. So when I say he's going to Berkeley, it's not like he's fresh out of high school.
Oh.
He just wanted that extra education. He wanted to get on top of some other things. He wanted to keep learning and like go beyond what he could do, not in a classroom. So here, back to the education thing. But his assignment was to interview music educators about what they would offer someone who's just getting started. So what advice would they offer someone just getting started? Mm-hmm. I think this is very fitting here. Mm-hmm. So let's go around the circle. Let's say that. Say if you are just getting started and you are considering, or people that are listening are considering teaching right now, what would you say are the top things you would advise them in? I have a whole list. I'll get to mine after you guys, but the main things.
The main things. Okay. The number one thing, definitely, we've talked about already, and something I think everyone struggles with is just doing it and just being able to just say, okay, maybe I'm not the most expert of experts, but like I have something to offer. Know internally that everyone has something to offer, whether it's through hardship or through success. You have something to offer to somebody somewhere. Like, that's why the internet's great, is you can find all these people through these avenues.
Yeah.
And going through and just doing it, but also knowing that it really is, teaching is a conversation, and you'll learn as they learn how to do a better job. And so just getting into it with the right mentality of just, it's going to be communication. It's going to be a discussion. I'm going to pull what I can to offer what I can, and letting that be just, friend to friend kind of thing. And then that's where the affirmation comes in, is being friendly, being that person who will lift them up when they need it. And if, throughout what I've seen as well, I've seen, 80 to 90% really is like, a lot of it is just affirmation and just giving them that, like, you are moving in the right direction. Take that time to nurture your voice and to find yourself within it. And I'm on that journey with you. Like, we're all learning here, to master this thing, because you can never really truly master a mastery. It's always an evolution of whatever branch of life you take from the seed of, existence. Like you will never master anything. So just know that you just gotta start somewhere. Just do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. I can think of two particularly, and it's probably just a lot what you were just saying, Drew. One, let go of your ego to say you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. You don't need to know everything because not one single person does. You have your strengths, you have what you do know and that you are solid on. And if you don't know something, find out.
Yes.
And tell the student, be honest with them. Because if the student is looking for a perfect teacher, that's an unrealistic expectation to put on yourself. If they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, say that. I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. And honestly, they're going to get a lot more benefit and probably a little bit more dopamine to think, ooh, I stumped my teacher. I'm asking a good question. You know, like I've done that where I'm like, cool, I'm asking the right stuff. So like, don't be afraid to say you don't know. And then the other big one that I feel very strongly about is that yes, get your own brand as a teacher. That's important because you know what you know, you have your way of speaking, you have we all have different teaching approaches. But yeah, know your values exactly. But understand that every individual student is just that, an individual. They are all different. What worked for you, what made sense to you, or your metaphor, your way of explaining how something is supposed to feel, how something is supposed to sound is completely different, or could be just completely different than what they feel, what they understand. And just because they don't get it initially doesn't mean that they're not picking up on it. It just means you need to find another way to get it across to them.
Absolutely. I like that.
Early on, I was constantly bringing up YouTube in my lessons and going to different vocal coaches' websites. So I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find it. But I knew enough, and this is something that the student doesn't have this acumen, is I knew enough that I could skip through videos like that. So I'm like, nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not that. Let's try that.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that. They would be watching videos for hours and wondering what should they try. We know that. And as a teacher, when you're in that teaching mode, you do that. You're like, that's not it. Let's move on. Let's move on. It gets a little ADD for a bit, but then you grab something.
Yeah.
Like, let's try that one. And honestly, that's why I teach. And that's why I got certified in the methodology that I am certified in, is because I kept coming back to the same guy. So it worked. Yeah. It's good to do that. It's good to not know and be willing to find the answer for them. And I've had students comment on that. It's like, I love that you're always learning too.
Yeah. It's always so interesting when getting into that mentality of just like, I don't know. Like, I love that you brought that up of just like, you never really know everything. So just being accepting of that and confident and like, that's just the way things will always be. Let's figure it out together. It brings the affirmation.
There you go. Together.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. That's it, man.
And that like minute to maybe like the couple minutes that you are taking to try to find the answer for them, it's only a couple minutes. It feels like an hour because you're just sitting there like, where is it? Oh my gosh, hang on, I gotta find it.
To them.
Exactly. Yeah. To us, it feels like an hour, but to them, it's like, oh yeah, just like a minute or two pass, and then they get more benefit because you took the time. So yeah.
So when it comes to being a teacher and building up that side of the business, even if it's just part-time so you can focus the rest on your music career, which I do suggest, there are quite a number of things that I say are super important for building that up. First, hire an assistant. Hire as early as you can. Get somebody to help you build that business, even if all they're doing is the student scheduling. Dude, that's something you don't have to think about anymore. You're not going to spend 10 hours a week making sure everybody's on schedule, making sure everybody's paid, or hire an admin assistant. Even if you're just hiring somebody for 5 to 10 hours a week, they have a specific job to do that you don't have to do anymore. You can focus on being a better teacher, learning your instrument better. So I'd say have a strong client agreement in place. So the client agreement, the policies in place on cancellations, on reschedules, have a really strong one in place. I would say even so strong it's a little scary, but then on the back end, you're really lenient.
Yeah.
If you cancel within 72 hours, you're not getting that lesson. You're going to pay for it, but we're not going to reschedule you. And then when it actually happens, you're like, okay, you canceled like an hour before, man. Here's our policy, but I'll go ahead and reschedule you this time. Just remember, next time, please try to give me advance notice. That's how it usually ends up looking. Because if you start saying, well, you canceled in this amount of time and it's our policy, that you're not going to have that student for long.
Yeah.
So we have a 30-day cancellation policy, and they don't care. And you just never will see them again if you're harsh about it.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. Stuff happens.
Charge based on the results you can prove you get. So not just the results you can get, but the results you can prove that you get for your students. Not on the market rate. You're worth way more than you think you are. That's a huge thing, man. You're worth way more. So when it comes to first starting, let them give you what they can. Let them set the price. Sure, you're just starting out. When you know your stuff and you're actually getting good results, and especially if you hear that they came from other teachers that didn't do anything for years, then it's time to even charge more than the other teachers in your area.
Yeah.
So charge on the results you can prove that you get.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the number one, and we've said this over and over, the number one most absolute important thing is validation or affirmation and encouragement. Guidance and results actually come second, sometimes a distant second, but that is the number one thing, affirmation and encouragement. That's what they're coming to you for. I also say a lot of teachers are confined to being in their city, and a lot of students are looking for in-person lessons. Thankfully, COVID changed a lot of that. But teach online. You guys have a lot of experience in this too. It is a little different than in person, but you can get the same results online. Teach online because the world is your marketplace. You're a unique teacher, a unique personality, a unique style, a unique fit that a lot of people are looking for, and it's just not available in their local area. So don't limit yourself to the local market. I'll write these all in the description too. Specialize. So we are rock singing lessons. The only singer in that marketplace, all focused on rock music. So really, we get a lot of rock and metal, but rock covers a wide variety of things, sure. But we're still niching down to what we really love. And we get mostly people in that genre, but specializing. So not only how did I say this? I'll just read it. Not only do you get to focus more on what you love, you also you set yourself apart in a sea of other teachers. You're not just teaching voice. You are not a classical teacher. If you're a rock singer looking to get into teaching, dude, don't teach classical. Maybe not teach jazz even, because you don't know enough about it yet, or you don't know enough about your own voice to be able to translate things into teaching jazz. Find something you love to teach. You figured out screaming, just teach screaming. What is his name? David Benitez. Extreme Vocal Institute. Dude, he leaned into it, and he's doing really well because of it.
100%.
And he's unique. He is not the only teacher out there that teaches it and teaches it well. We teach it. Mark from Carterbox teaches it. Mary Z teaches it. We're all very different teachers, though. And these are all very different students. So somebody's going to latch on to what you do and how you teach. And you finally found your person. Like, that's how that goes. When it comes to problem students, fire people who drain your energy. Do not hold on to them. Just get rid of them. If a lot of them drain your energy, then, maybe reflect on your value and who you attract so that you get more valuable students. But it's not worth holding on to people that you feel drained after every lesson with them. It's not the right fit. Let them go find somebody to fill that spot that is a better fit. Just because you need the money, you don't need the energy drain. Trust me, it's not worth the energy drain.
No kidding.
I would say creating and market your courses off of what you teach as soon as you can. It may take you a little while to learn what that is. So you're creating mini courses. You're creating content online and getting used to being on camera and stuff like that. So learn the basics of lighting, sound, and video, and turn the camera on and teach what you're already teaching. You're teaching these lessons. Just get some practice on camera. Yeah. And then turn it into mini courses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take questions your students have had and answer them on camera.
Yeah.
And put it out there. Show your value and get used to being on camera. It's so good for you in way more ways than just getting your name out there.
100%.
I'm losing my place here. There's a lot. Good, man. I have like 6 more.
Oh, snap.
Learn copywriting, marketing, and best social media practices, and then batch that work together and automate what you can. Now, this is something we haven't leaned into a whole lot yet. We're starting to. I have batch recorded a year's worth of content before this. These podcasts are probably going to be in little batches as well. But without copywriting, that is, every word needs to earn its place. You're trying to describe what you do in a way that connects with other people and what they're actually looking for. That's copywriting. Honestly, that's a big part of marketing as well. And best social media practices changes a lot, but I can tell you the one thing that doesn't change is connecting with other people. Doesn't matter what the tool is. When you're setting out to connect with other people, even if you're going out there and finding who those other people are, which I do suggest, you're going to be building up a name for yourself. It takes time. That definitely takes time. But it's totally worth the time, especially if you enjoy connecting with other people. If you don't enjoy connecting with other people, maybe pursuing a career in music, not just teaching, maybe pursuing a career in music isn't really for you because you need to connect with fans to make money.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
Let's say hire experts to do any work that doesn't energize you or you're not an expert in yourself. When I've spent 8 hours on one little issue on my website and still haven't figured it out, and I had a friend encourage me. It's like, why don't you hire somebody who knows how to do that? It's like, but I have free time. It's like, well, what do you charge per hour? Charge a lot. Like, then how much? What's that time? 8 hours. It's like but it's my free time. I kept making excuses.
Yeah,
it's my free time. It didn't actually cost me that much. It's like, okay, well, what would it be if you hired somebody? About what I charge per hour? I did it. He fixed the issue in 15 minutes. Hire experts. If the work's not energizing you, it's not worth spending time on. Somebody else to do it. That's huge. Even as a musician and building your career as a musician, if it's something you don't enjoy doing, you need somebody to do it though. Hire somebody else to do it. Get your time back. Focus on the things you do love and the things that you're really good at while somebody else takes care of the other part. Goes back to hiring an assistant early. If you don't really enjoy student scheduling and upkeep, then get somebody else to do it. So you can focus on being a better teacher and a better musician and doing stuff you love doing. Okay, say 10 times your goals. The reason I say that, things take way more time than we actually want them to. Almost every single time.
Every time, yeah, for me.
10 timing your goals. Saying, I'm going to do 10 times what I want, what I set out to do, means it's inevitable you're going to reach that 10%.
Right.
So 10 times you write down your SMART goals. Do you remember what SMART goals are?
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, attainable, and then
what
is it? Realistic and time sensitive?
Yep.
Something like that, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good job, man. So write down your SMART goals and go 10 times beyond that. So that the original goal becomes inevitable, especially if you don't do it alone. Say, be patient. It's a big one. Be patient and persistent. It takes 3, 10, sometimes 100 times longer than you want them to. Anything you set out to do, you'll get there if you keep your sight on the goal. It just takes time. I think that goes across the board, whether you're building a business, building income through teaching, or building up your own skills through your own education about you as a singer, or if it comes to a music career. Be patient. It just takes time. If you're doing the right things, your eyes are on the goal, you're not constantly shifting, you keep your eyes on the goal, you keep moving, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Here's one that I think is super important. Again, it doesn't matter what you're doing. This just makes you valuable as a person. Always add value. Don't be afraid of sharing your ideas with someone who's also just runs off with one of them. Great. Awesome. You have all these great ideas. Share them. Let other people go for it. Be the inspiration. Don't be afraid of that. The idea there, though, is you're always adding value in whatever you do. That's going to make you a very valuable person just by default. And I would say the last one I have on this list is probably the most important, especially for people that are more ADD, which a lot of us musicians tend to have, or something in that line, you know. We have all these grand ideas. We have this huge vision for what we want to do with our career, with what we want to do with, let's say you're going into teaching, what you would want to do with that. We tend to be dreamers, and that's part of being a musician. Beware the dopamine trap. And that is the trap of sharing what you're working on and then feeling accomplished because you shared it. When you actually haven't done anything that you said you're working on. That's a huge one. It's one thing to have accountability, to say, I'm working on this, not this huge thing, but I'm working on this right now. And I'll have it to you by next week because you're almost done with it already. Sure, share that and then finish it. But if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna record an album. Are you? Did you just tell the world that you're gonna record this album? You have this huge album concept that you're working on that you're gonna put out into the world, and now you're happy because you shared it.
Yep.
You kind of just gave away your motivation. Yeah, you got the dopamine hit. You don't need to actually do it anymore. Don't be that, man. Don't. So beware what you share. Beware the dopamine trap of sharing what you're working on and feeling like you accomplished something you haven't even done yet.
That's good.
That was a lot. That was a lot to go over. I know. But, is there anything else you guys want to add to the conversation?
Just do it.
I like that a lot, man. That's where I struggle, and I'm just like, just do the thing. And like kind of like what I was mentioning a little bit was like everything that you do, like beware of obviously the dopamine trap, but like record pretty much everything you do. Don't be afraid of the camera, like we've said. And just like if you are working on that album, record you writing that dumb top line that you won't even use. Like just be like present. Be like,
turn on the camera.
Yeah, I changed it. I changed it. That happens to everyone. They'll be like, yeah, I relate to that. I like what you did now. And they have something to grab onto, something to relate to.
There's a couple things on that note that I want people to look up, and they'll thank me for it. Even if you don't like Shia LaBeouf, it's totally worth it. The first is more serious, and look for the longer version, the 30-minute version of Just Do It. Just do it! Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, yeah.
It's full motivational speech. If you listen to that whole 30-minute speech, it's amazing. And dude, this guy's been through the ringer and back, and he has a lot of great things to say. That monologue is amazing. So Just Do It, motivational speech, Shia LaBeouf, 30-minute version. Totally worth it. And then for a really good laugh, since I brought up Shia LaBeouf, Rob Cantor, Shia LaBeouf Live, or if you look up Shia LaBeouf the musical, I'll just let y'all explore that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Is that the one? Never mind. I'm not going to say anything. Watch it.
I just say, yeah, it's like live on stage, and it just gets more and more ridiculous the longer it goes. So, and then that one's relatively short, if I remember correctly. What is that? Yeah, 3.5 minutes. So rather than 30 minutes. So yeah, let's leave people with that.
Now remember, if you want a place to discuss this topic further and other topics too, a place where you can improve both your voice and your music career with courses and other cool resources, unlockable resources even, and a community of other rock and metal singers on the same path. We'll support you, encourage you along the way, just a cool community to be with. Then join us at school.com/rock singing success. Now, over my last 30 years as a professional performing musician, music career coach, and rock singing coach, I've helped hundreds of in-person students and thousands of students in my courses. So I created the Rock Singing Success community to offer you even more help on your journey. Again, that's school.com/rock singing success. That's SKOOL.com/rock singing success. Join us there. Let's continue this discussion. See you there.